Welcome, everyone. My name is Maeva Gauthier. I'm the program manager for the community-led research fund at MIOPAR. And today we're going to be going over the call for proposal and go over the application process and answer any questions you may have. So we're going to be getting started here. And I'd like to take a moment before we jump into this to acknowledge the Lekwungen people on whose territory I live on and I raise my kids on and been learning from. And so the Songhees, Esquimalt, and West people on whose territory they've been having historical relationships to for millennia. So, and I acknowledge too that everybody's coming from different coasts and different communities in Canada. So we all coming from different locations, and I'd like for us to take a moment to think about the unique histories and relationships that exist already in those places. So as we engage today in the discussions, I'd like us to reflect on the land we're on and the Indigenous caretakers as well, and how we can contribute to reconciliation in your own ways. So I'm Maeva Gauthier. I'm part of the team here online on this webinar, and I believe Ryan Ford is probably as well on the webinar. I can't see his image right now. He's our
I'm here.
project accountant.
Hello.
Oh, you're there. Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
You appeared now. And we also have Rosie and Odette from our communications team helping us out on, sharing some of the questions from the chat, but also some important links in the chat for you, some resources we have. So today our agenda is to go over quickly about MIOPAR and the science strategy, the overview of the fund, the resources available and the application process, as well as the SurveyMonkey portal we use to submit applications, the evaluation criteria, and then we'll have some time for Q&A, hopefully 30 minutes for the Q&A. We'll see how it's going. And I'm curious before we get started, if you are completely new to MIOPAR in terms of, pretty new to the network and this research network, could you put new in the chat just to get a sense of who's kind of pretty new to it? And it's always good to know, how we're expanding this network. So a lot of new people. It's great. Welcome.
Hi.
And in the last year or so, MIOPAR has changed. So it used to be a little bit more technical in ocean sciences, and with the new science strategy and the funding from the Science Strategic Fund, there's definitely more diversity and opening the definition that we have of the ocean sector in Canada. So way more inclusion of researchers, including community researchers and community-led research. So it's great to see this diversity opening up, and our website eventually in the next months will reflect also more some of that new direction that MIOPAR has for the next few years. So before I jump into the call per se, I just wanted to tell a little bit more about MIOPAR. We're a ocean research network, and so it's coast to coast to coast, and we typically fund ocean connected community connected to the ocean in some ways. So we call them ocean connected communities. So if your project is not directly on the coast, but there's some connection to the ocean in some ways, even if you're more inland, that's something to know about, that there's some flexibility there in the definition. And we have 4 core science priorities that have been identified for the new science strategy that came out recently, so for 2025 to 2030. And some of the core priorities are related to ocean protection and coastal social ecological system stewardship. The core priority 2 is around climate change prediction, adaptation, readiness, and intervention. Core priority number 3 is around just and equitable opportunities in the blue economy. So we're talking about more coastal jobs, ocean-related jobs. Core priority number 4 is leadership in marine research, infrastructure access, and talent development. So one of the fund we have open right now is the Early Career Award. So it's related to that core priority around talent development. And I would encourage you to have a look at it as well, because the Early Career Award is not only for academia, but it can also be nonprofits who are wanting to do research and need to increase their capacity for research in-house. So that's something to look into. And MIOPAR is a not-for-profit organization, and we're supporting research, training, and communication around all around the ocean and the coast. And it's quite multidisciplinary, so we're supporting knowledge mobilization, a diversity of knowledge system to enhance our ocean governance in Canada. And then, as I mentioned, the talent development and attraction is one, and the research, of course. So we have an expedition fund as well open right now that is to support the ship cost to go at sea, but also smaller vessels. So there's a variety of type of ships that can be included in that definition. So jumping more into the Community-Led Research Fund, it's a multi-year fund from 2026 to 2028, so almost 3 years. It's for projects that would start in late March, so like in the next fiscal year after March 31st, 2026, and the project would need to end for October 31st, 2028. And it supports community-led research projects to support resilience and marine environmental challenges or priorities that have been identified by the community. When we talk about community, because it's a question we've been asked before, we talk about communities who are living in that location where the project is taking place. So it could be a not-for-profit, it could be a indigenous organization, and it could be in partnership with a group that's outside of the community, of course, as well. So some projects could be with an NGO that's outside of the community and working with a specific community, or it could be an academic partner working to support the local priorities as well. And so the fund is designed to really prioritize Indigenous-led and community-led research and priorities that are in place for them. The letter of support can help with making that case as well. And we're really hoping to support more research capacity, develop research capacity in communities. So a little bit more outside of academia as well. And that includes training, and perhaps the training can take place between academic partners and community members as well, mentorship, skills development. And we're really hoping to support more research partnerships, so kind of bringing together the Western science and the Indigenous knowledge systems as well. And the definition of research in this case could be social science, it can be natural sciences, it could be Indigenous science. So there's a lot of flexibility with this fund in terms of the types of research projects, because it can link to community well-being. So say the community wants to work on food security or subsistence topics, or things that you wouldn't think that are necessarily ocean focused, but they are all connected because they connect with the community well-being and the cultural identity, for example, of that community. So there's a certain flexibility in terms of the types of topics that this fund can support. And you can have one lead applicant or 2 co-leads in the application. So I've seen, for example, in our recent seed fund, we had some that were academic and community partners, co-leads. Sometimes it's just a co-lead, a lead from the community. Sometimes it's a lead from the academic sector with a letter of support from the community organization. So there's different ways to go about it. Funding can be up to $150,000 per year, and it's up to 2.5 years. So you would have to adjust the budget for a total funding maximum of $300,000. And we're hoping to fund between 6 and 10 projects, depending on the awards allocated. And Oh yeah, the dates. The submission deadline is January 25th because, well, the holidays are around the corner, so we're hoping to give a bit more time for you to put your application together. Decisions would be early March 2026, roughly, and agreements after that, and then start and end date, as I mentioned earlier, will be starting for the next fiscal year, so April 1st, 2026 to October 31st, 2028. Examples of projects, because there's different approach definitely, and we wanted to include different models in there. So it could be for community-based monitoring programs, guardian programs, knowledge hubs or living labs or test sites, if some of you have heard about this. So a living lab tends to be an interdisciplinary site, and it could be virtual or in person locally, and it's all around a certain priority or need, and it's bringing different interdisciplinary partners. It could be businesses, academia, not-for-profit, different organizations together to work towards a certain priority or need. It could be a certain problem related to the ocean that wants to be tackled, and like could be a place for innovation and ideas. So that's this idea of living lab or test sites, and then knowledge hubs as well. So there's more interdisciplinarity and knowledge coming together. And it could be also doing a research project as well, per se. So there's a flexibility around that. As I mentioned earlier, it could be natural sciences, social sciences, indigenous methodologies, and project can weave different approaches and can support cultural knowledge, language, land and water-based activities that can support community well-being. So there's a certain flexibility in the topics. If you're not sure, also, you feel free to reach out. Sometimes, I can review if you have a one-page project description. I'm happy to give you some feedback on that. In terms of funding eligibility, it has to be Canadian-based in terms of the applicant. The types of organization is quite flexible, so not-for-profit, indigenous organizations, post-secondary institutions, municipalities. Pretty much the main people who can't apply for this grant are federal agencies or federal government. So that's the main group that's not eligible. And the lead must be eligible to hold a grant in their name in their organization. So it could be university or not-for-profit, for example. So in terms of resources, I think Rosie or Odette will post a few links as well. There's on our website, there's different documents. I know it's a lot, quite a bit. There's the application guide, which is a bit longer and more descriptive. There's the call for proposal, that's a little bit shorter. We have the proposal form, which has the questions for the applications for you to work on as a Word document before you get onto SurveyMonkey portal. So it's a good way to, if you work collaboratively on a Google document, for example, it's a good way to kind of tweak things before you copy paste online. And Appendix A is more of a glossary, and I think it's in the main application guide. The budget template is, so there's different ones. So we have the B, which is the funds required from or ask from MIOPAR. The B1 is a new one, is around indirect costs or overhead. And I'll tell you a little bit about this soon. And Appendix C is the contribution from partners. So there's a specific guideline around match funds for MIOPAR, which is match funds are funding coming from non-federal sources. So it could be municipal, provincial, foundation, corporate, different funds. These can be considered match funding, and there's a requirement for many of our funds to have a certain amount of match funding. So in this case, if you're asking for $100,000, you have to bring $80,000, so 80% in match funding, which could be in kind or cash. So there's a good infographic on our website to kind of give you a sense of match funding versus leverage funding. So it's a good one to be aware of. For people in academia, SSHRC and NSERC are federal, so they would not be considered match funding. They would be leverage funding. And some of the key resource documents that we have, we have the science strategy, the match leverage funding I was mentioning. And we have a big component that's EDIA and truth and reconciliation in terms of our evaluation criteria. And we understand that sometimes it's not it can be jargony sometimes to think about how to bring this into a proposal and understand what we're looking for and things like that. So we had a webinar recently with experts in EDIA and also reconciliation topics, thinking about proposal writing. So they give examples of a good EDIA, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility approach, and good versus great versus not so good. So it kind of gives you a sense of expectations and gives you some tips on that side as well. So I think Rosie and Odette will post a link as well to the recorded webinar to give you some tips on that. So the online portal we use is SurveyMonkey. It's a pretty straightforward platform, but I would encourage you when it opens, likely early next week, and we can definitely send you an email when it opens for people who attended this webinar. Once it's open, I would encourage you to, sign up, test it out to make sure there's no glitches or nothing, no big question, because the holidays are around the corner. So I would rather that you connect with us earlier if there's any issues on your end. And then from the Word document, the proposal worksheet, you would just kind of go from section to section, and I would encourage you to just copy paste from a Word document rather than working, the draft on the SurveyMonkey platform. And some of the components are general information about the applicant or the two co-lead applicants, information overview of the project, your goals, approach, community priorities. What we've seen in the past with the seed fund is, or other funding for that matter, it's not taking into taking into account that people might not know the community or might not know the impact or potential impacts of your project. So make sure you're really clear on some of the information around, what are the community priorities and how your project is supporting those priorities or needs. And that could be done with a letter of support, for example, or there's also a video optional submission at the end of the proposal. So if you want to highlight anything, that's a good way also to highlight some of the information. And we're looking also for projects that are led by communities. So you can demonstrate the leadership in different ways. It could be as having a lead or co-lead that's from the community, or letter of support again, or the team, or the level of decision making and direction on the project. So I would encourage you to also be very clear on that, so people don't make assumptions on if it's really a community-led project or not. And project milestones as another section, so different milestone deliverables, timeline, and some of the main goals that you may have per year. And we ask also for a data management plan, how you are going to be hosting the data, who has ownership over that. So, for example, there's the OCAP care principles, FAIR principles, Inuit research, data management might be a little bit different as well. So I would encourage you, especially if you're working with Indigenous knowledge, to really look into that. And the budget section, so there's different appendix to attach the MIOPAR, the funding asked by to MIOPAR, which is Appendix B. The B1 is the overhead cost, and something that that is a bit different for us is we cannot do just a flat rate overhead. It's up to 15%, but if you are asking for a certain percentage, we need to provide the details to our own funder about how the overhead is used. So we created the Appendix B1 to really help applicants to understand how you can break down the overhead and how you can calculate it. So we're hoping it's going to be useful. And then the Appendix C is for the match funds or the leverage funds. So that's the all the partners' contribution can go in there. Yeah, that's about it. Letter of support, we're requesting for one minimum, but you can add more if needed or if you want. And letter of support could be, for example, showing community needs or priorities, how the project supports that. It could also be for match funding or leverage funding, and it's a way to kind of share that information as well. And you can either attach them yourself or you can invite your partners to upload the letter themselves on the SurveyMonkey portal. So the deadline is January 25th. And yeah, feel free if you have any questions. I'm happy to provide any input or feedback on your applications. This is how the SurveyMonkey platform looks like, and we have a user guide as well in English and French to help with the step-by-step process. And this is the proposal evaluation criteria. So it's 20% for related to the goals, overarching goals, benefits, the scope of the project, and how it aligns with the science strategy. There's a 30% that's more around the objectives, the approach or methodology, the collaboration in place with the community or in the community. There's the EDIA, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility, and Truth and Reconciliation considerations. That is 25%. We had questions before around what if the project is not Indigenous or Indigenous-led? How do you answer about truth and reconciliation considerations? And we have some resources that can help you on that sense, but it's thinking about whose land or whose water it is that you're working on, and thinking about is the community, the Indigenous community nearby aware of the project? Are they supportive of this project? Is there any way they can be involved in it? Or how can we disseminate knowledge to the community as well? So it's the before and the during and the after of the project. So there's different considerations you can think about, even if the project is not Indigenous-led per se. And the other 25% is around your timeline, your budget, the support, so the match funding or the leverage funding, and the data management as well. And there's a bonus 5% for equity deserving groups applying or remote applicant from remote regions. So it's a way for us to help or prioritize more proposals from these groups. So that's about it for this overview of the call, and now we'll have some time for questions.